quotes, infused with the scent of potpourri, films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer, a weekly podcast reviewing 2 new or recent release titles every episode with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find more of my work, including my written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes and spin-off podcasts at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also follow me on Letterboxd and other social media platforms at the username of Obsessive Viewer. And if you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where I do immediate reaction movie reviews, book reviews, TV episode reviews, and some audio test content because I'm weird, and commentary tracks and B-roll recordings. A whole bunch of stuff is over on Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Shout out to recent guest Keegan for joining Patreon. I don't know if I said that in the last episode, but shout out to Keegan. We'll have him back on the show soon. But once again, you can sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for all of that and a bunch more content, or all of what I said. And if you want to support me without messing with Patreon or just make a donation, you can always buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/obsessiveviewer. This week on the show, we're going to be reviewing the new Joseph Kosinski movie, F1, the movie, in this week's secondary review. But before that, we're going to go over some movie news and Indianapolis screening information before reviewing Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's latest collaboration 28 years later in this week's feature review. And I'm sure you can hear me smizing as I say that because I've been looking forward to this movie for 23 years, basically. So it's a big one, big episode this week. And joining me for this episode is my friend and IFJ colleague, whose work can be found at MidwestFilmJournal.com, and he can be followed on Letterboxd at the handle of wounded_kite. It's Mitch Ringenberg. Welcome back to the show, Mitch. How is it going, sir?
It's going great, man. Thank you for having me back.
Of course.
Stoked to chat movies, especially a new horror movie that I believe we were both anticipating.
Yes.
Quite a great deal. I was right there with you, kind of waiting years and years for this one.
Yeah. Oh, my God. And it's so exciting because shout out to me, I guess, but like this episode is going up on Thursday, June 26th, which is my 39th birthday. So happy birthday to me. Here's an episode of the podcast,
Happy
you guys.
Birthday.
Thank you. I might try to put something up on Patreon, but we'll see if my Tuesday and Wednesday is not draining and everything, because the AC in my car is out and I'm going to be sweating when I'm driving home from work and to work and everything. So, that's a little behind the scenes, you guys, but, but Mitch, I don't know if you want this publicized or anything, but you're currently kind of taking a hiatus from the film journalism thing. So usually I say like recent work from the guest. You recently did have a 4K review of The Penguin.
I did.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. I have not watched The Penguin, but I'm wearing a Batman shirt right now. I just finished replaying Arkham City. I've been watching the Batman the Animated Series and yeah, I'm like, I go through these fits where I will get the itch to either watch Batman the Animated Series or rewatch Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, or I'll even occasionally think, oh, I want to pick up a comic book, and I'll I read all of the New 52 Batman comics. And whenever I get into these, I invariably always go to Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, and replay those. And every time I do that, I'm like, Batman is the best character in all of fiction. This is amazing. Why is my life not completely devoted to Batman? So
Well, I will say if you're in a Batman, right now, I think the Penguin is very much worth your time. I believe it's only
nice.
8 episodes, and I will say this, that the first 2 episodes take a little while
Okay.
to get going. They're not bad by any means, but just I think like there's a lot of setup, but especially the back half of the season is wildly entertaining.
Nice.
It's very good. So I think you will be quite pleased with it. It's also way more brutal and R-rated than I expected the show to be. So it's kind of
that's
cool.
awesome.
And honestly, Matt, who knows if we're getting another Matt Reeves Batman movie?
Yeah.
So it's nice to maybe enjoy that world a little more while we still can.
Yeah, I totally agree about the possibility of the Batman Part 2 ever coming out. But yeah, that's actually funny because there was an article that I saw where James Gunn was telling fans to he said, quote, "Get off of Matt Reeves' nuts and let him work. Like, he'll get Batman Part 2 out when he gets it out." So like, because people are like very upset that they're waiting so long. I loved the Batman, and yeah, so I don't know why I haven't watched the Penguin yet, but I plan to.
Yeah, give it a shot for sure.
Yeah.
And as far as James Gunn saying that it's going to happen, I mean, of course he has to say that.
Yeah.
He has to say that. So I'll believe it when I see it.
Yep. Yeah. So since that's really the only thing in terms of writing that you've done, what have you watched lately that, like, is there anything that you've watched that you want to like throw out and talk about, kind of light potpourri at the beginning here?
Yeah, like some I could definitely give you just a little brief run through of what I've seen recently.
Sure.
I'll focus more on like new releases here. So one thing I really enjoyed was Predator, Killer of Killers, the that animated Hulu release. Is it like a masterful, groundbreaking story? No, but it's a fun animated anthology feature with the Predator fighting different killers in different centuries throughout history.
Okay.
Like World War II pilots, samurai, Vikings, and has a ton of really gory kills and like a really fun wraparound segment. Usually I feel like in anthologies, like the wraparound segments are usually like kind of the weakest aspect. And this, I would say, it was actually probably maybe the best part of the movie. So it's like an 80-minute animated feature on Hulu. I would recommend it by Dan Trachtenberg, I believe. He co-directed it with somebody.
Nice.
Yes, I also checked out a little a very like I would love to just put this on the radar of listeners. I actually made a little plea for this in the chat, or like group chat we're in. A little indie movie called Vulcanizadora. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is a super like micro budget movie by this guy named Joel Patrikis, who also is the co-lead in the movie and wrote it. I don't really want to reveal what it's about beyond just the synopsis. It says 2 friends take a trip through a Michigan forest intent on carrying out a disturbing pact. This is a sequel, although you do not need to see the original to enjoy this. This is a sequel to a 2014 movie called Buzzard with the same lead characters.
Okay.
I would describe both this and Buzzard as, imagine Taxi Driver directed by Mike Judge.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah. So, loser, slacker kind of humor, but extremely disturbing and off-putting as well. And this 10 years later sequel is almost fellow critic in our critic circle, Craig J. Clark, he kind of described me. He was like, it's almost like the before trilogy for like psychopathic, like dirt bags.
Wow.
Catch up with these characters 10 years later.
Okay.
They are both Buzzard and Vulcanizadora are like excellent movies made on like a shoestring budget, but they're incredibly engrossing and very unsettling, but also very funny. And the lead character, this guy named Joshua Burge, has a face that it's just, you can't look away from it.
Okay.
It's truly just, it's one of the most engrossing, slightly off-putting faces I've ever seen. You know, Joel Petrakis, however he found this guy, is amazing. So even if just you watch Buzzard and Vulcanizadora, highly recommend. They're like 80 minutes apart.
Okay. Are they streaming anywhere, on demand, whatever?
So yeah, Vulcanizadora is just, you can rent it on VOD for like $5.
Nice.
And Buzzard is streaming on Tubi and Canopy as well. So
Okay.
Tubi and Canopy. I have a feeling, Matt, you would really enjoy them.
Nice. I will definitely have to check those both out. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I am very excited that you have been able to watch a bunch of movies. That's awesome. So, and once again, you can follow Mitch on the Letterboxd machine at wounded_kite. Link in the show notes of this episode, of course. And well, I don't really have much about what's playing in Indy except one thing. Do you mind if I go into that whole spiel, Mitch?
By all means.
Alrighty. So, of course, around Indianapolis, we have a variety of different theaters. I will say that as of this episode releasing on June 26th, today is the last day you'll be able to see The Life of Chuck at the Can. So go see it tonight. If you're listening to this early enough to make it. But that is at the Can. Also at the Can on July 10th, The Waiting Game, the documentary that us at the IFJA awarded our Hoosier Award to, the documentary where I interviewed the filmmaker Michael Hussein on the podcast after its premiere at Heartland Film Festival last October. The Waiting Game is screening in Indianapolis on July 10th at 7 p.m. at Can Theater. I will have a link to the show, link in the show notes to where you can get a ticket for that. Tickets are $12. The documentary is amazing. It's beautiful. It's heartfelt. It is rage-inducing, and it's so many things. And especially now that we're in the shadow of the NBA Finals and the Indiana Pacers lost to the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you're still riding that high of basketball fever, go to the Can on July 10th for The Waiting Game. Mitch, what did you think of The Waiting Game? Did you catch it?
I actually never caught it. I am very much planning on circling back and seeing that though when I can, because always want to support our Hoosier filmmakers, especially being in the IFJA. That's an awesome opportunity we get to kind of champion local filmmakers. Absolutely.
So once again, July 10th at the Can, The Waiting Game is going to be screening at 7 p.m. So check that out. Link in the show notes. And I also recommend checking out all the other theaters around Indianapolis. Alamo Drafthouse, of course, the first and third Sunday of each month. They have movie trivia that's hosted by our friend and colleague Lou Harry. That's the first and third Sunday of each month. So not this weekend, but next weekend. July 4th weekend, they will have movie trivia on Sunday at 6:00. It's free to play. It's free to participate, but you can also buy food, drinks, all of that good stuff. So that's at Alamo Drafthouse. And also check out Living Room Theaters, Keystone Art, and Flicks Brewhouse. And that is it for what's playing around Indianapolis this weekend coming up. I do have a couple of, or one real piece of news to talk about. So, Mitch, would you like to talk news before the reviews?
Absolutely.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, the only piece of news I have is that the Punisher, John Bernthal, is going to be joining Spider-Man Brand New Day. And it follows in the kind of footsteps, I guess, of major Marvel characters being in Spider-Man movies, Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, I guess. How do you feel about this, this news? And did you watch Daredevil Born Again?
I did watch Daredevil Born Again. So a couple of things I just want to preface this about. To the listeners, I kind of prompted Matt. I was like, can we discuss this, please?
Yep.
And not because I'm very invested in Marvel right now. I actually thought Daredevil Born Again was a pretty disappointing return to that character. A character who would easily be my favorite Marvel character of all time, both especially in his comic book runs. The show has been uneven, I think, but this Disney iteration was pretty disappointing, I thought. However, we're in a weird place with Marvel where they seem to kind of be throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and doing a lot of things that I think 10 years ago we could not have imagined them doing.
Yeah.
There was a time 10 years ago, obviously, when all this Netflix Marvel stuff was just starting, that they really seemed very insistent on kind of being it's a part of the universe, but not really not the universe. And now they're like, no, it is. And, I will say, to Daredevil Born Again's credit, they really seem to be embracing an R-rated kind of tone, or R-rated material. Maybe not tone is the right word to put it, but and obviously with Deadpool and Wolverine, we got that as well. I think it is interesting that they want to include the Punisher in this Spider-Man movie. I think now I will say that the Punisher's first appearance in any comic book was in an issue of Spider-Man.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So it's not like, if you want to be a purist, you can absolutely say, that the Punisher is a Spider-Man character. That is how he was birthed in the comics. But obviously, in the years since, he's not necessarily very heavily associated with Spider-Man. And when you think of the very kind of John Hughes light, peppy tones of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, you don't necessarily immediately think of the Punisher. So I'm curious, why this decision was made, and why this character in particular was doing it. I kind of have a feeling. Have you seen Daredevil Born Again?
I haven't. Yeah.
So this is not a spoiler because it's revealed in the first episode that Wilson Fisk is the mayor of New York City.
Oh, okay.
And the Punisher plays a role in that, so it looks like they're really going to lean into that in this Spider-Man movie. I mean, I would imagine if we're bringing in the Punisher, this seems like it's going to tie into the events of Daredevil Born Again. To me, I wonder that having this character who's so R-rated and dark, how are you going to fit him into a Spider-Man movie without just really sanitizing the character in a way that won't be fun, or having a really, which I think probably more likely to happen than having this very jarring scene in a Spider-Man movie where the Punisher blows some guy's head off,
right?
Tom Holland's horrified by what he's seeing. So I don't know, Matt. I'm curious. Like, what do you think of this?
First of all, I need to watch Daredevil Born Again. My problem, as it is with one of my many problems, is that I feel like I need to go back and rewatch all of Daredevil, and then that makes me think, oh, I need to watch Daredevil, Punisher. I need to rewatch the other Defenders shows. I need to watch the Defenders and then watch Daredevil Born Again. And Mitch is shaking his head no, which that gives me a lot of pleasure because I don't want to do that.
I haven't seen all that.
Oh, interesting. But I will say, first of all, with Daredevil Born Again, you're telling me that they have a villain, someone corrupt and evil and hateful and terrible as a politician in charge of things? Like that is a little bit over the top.
It's a stretch, and honestly, it kind of pulls you right out of the show.
Yeah,
like, all right,
I bet.
I can buy a guy who's blind and has radar senses and can jump over rooftops and stuff, but like a corrupt guy who's been convicted of multiple felonies, being elected to like a really high public office, it's definitely just, I think, a bridge too far.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
you got to suspend your disbelief sometimes.
Yeah.
Superheroes.
Right. No kingpins. That's my. But yeah, I'm interested in what Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be like, especially after the events of No Way Home. That also makes me kind of curious about what tone this is going to be because of the Punisher, and like. The Punisher being in it, like you said, it's going to be weird to try to marry the tone of the Punisher with this version of Spider-Man. And like, I don't know. I doubt that they're going to lean into the darkness of that, but they've also set up like a pretty dark time for Peter Parker in Brand New Day with no one knowing who he is and everything. And like, he doesn't have that support system. Like, maybe they're going to lean into the darkness, but I don't know how far they're going to push that. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm intrigued.
Is Peter Parker going to grab a gun and start shooting goons?
Yes. Yeah. That was... go ahead. That was the weird thing about No Way Home, which I haven't watched in years, but the weird thing about No Way Home was like when... I think in particular, like in the hallway fight with Green Goblin, for some reason, it just felt jarring to me that I was watching like Spider-Man, like doing like straight up 1v1 hand-to-hand fighting stuff and not like doing like cool like tricks and stuff and webbing up people and everything. Like there was some weird thing in my brain where it was like, he's like kicking ass a bit, and like it felt weird to me. I don't know if I'm communicating that correctly, but like it felt weird in like, I guess, a good way, because like it really played up the emotion and everything of it. But like, I don't know, it was weird seeing like that rage in Spider-Man.
I think too, in like the Sam Raimi movies, a lot of the he had these wonderful like acrobatic action sequences where he was kind of doing little flips and punches and stuff like that, but it was very like acrobatic, and it was very like visually exciting, and kind of like Sam Raimi did such a great job that every single Spider-Man movie since has basically done that for their action sequences. But yeah, no, I agree. And that was interesting you brought up No Way Home kind of ending on a darker note. And obviously, it's like when they announced this, he could show up in this movie for 30 seconds.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Like I think that is, I cannot imagine him being, and I could be totally wrong, but like, I cannot, it's hard for me to wrap my head around him being a major character. And not to go off on too much of a tangent, but for some reason, I just think the Punisher is a character who is very simple, who is very straightforward, and has had some amazing comic book runs, particularly by Garth Ennis, who did like Preacher and The Boys. And
Nice.
I will say that the best runs of the Punisher, like by people like Garth Ennis, kind of paint him as this unfeeling psychopath who is a pretty terrifying and remorseless. And that's not really the version of the MCU Punisher. He's very emotional, very like, I'm trying to be the best guy. Like, I'm trying to be my best, but I'm too angry, it's not really my preferred like iteration of the Punisher. But I was having this conversation with like our fellow colleague, Andy Carr, of Odd Trilogies. And for some reason, the Punisher is just, they can't get it right. Like they can't get him right. They can't get him right in movies. Nope. There's been 3 Punisher movies. None have really been able to nail it. They gave him his own TV show. They couldn't really do that well either. Yeah. And they put him in this Daredevil show, and they're not really getting it right. And I don't know why. And I just feel like putting him in a Spider-Man movie, in a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, that just like doesn't feel to me like the direction I want to see him going in.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but it's just, I don't know why such a simple character is so like, you know what I mean? Why is he so difficult to execute?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The right way. I don't know.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I feel like at the very least, that means we will get, I think that Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to be at least popular with all of the like the rough, like thin blue line people who don't understand what the Punisher is. They'll at least get their
one
kicks.
of those. You have one of the Punisher skull American flag bumper stickers in the back of your car,
yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Yeah. Also a "Don't Tread on Me" sticker, and
love it.
Yeah.
Always traveling in style.
Yep. And if I get pulled over, I say I'm not driving, I'm traveling. I'm a sovereign citizen.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day, is set to release July 31st, 2026. So we will talk about that at some point, probably in July or early August 2026. Yeah, that's all I've got for news before the reviews. Mitch, would you like us to go ahead and go into our review of 28 Years Later?
Let's do it.
Hell yeah. Okay. So, of course, this is the feature review, so we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review of the movie. When we switch over to spoilers, I'll play a clip from the trailer to switch us over to spoilers, but check the show notes for timestamps to navigate around that if you'd like to do that. Those timestamps and show notes are also available at obsessiveviewer.com/OV480. And yeah, here we go. 28 Years Later is in theaters now. It was released on June 20th, and the premise, according to IMDb, is a group of survivors of the rage virus live on a small island. When one of the group leaves the island on a mission into the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors. The movie was directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, and the cast includes Alfie Williams, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, Chai Lewis Perry, Ralph Fiennes, and Jack O'Connell. And yeah, before we get into the non-spoiler review, Mitch, what is your relationship with the 28 Days Later and franchise? 28 Days Later and I think 2007's 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah, so I mean, I love 28 Days Later. I mean, I love I can't tell you, I don't have a memory of like the first time I saw 28 Days Later, because when it came out, I was like 10 years old. So I it was not one I was like seeing in theaters with, mom and dad.
Sure.
But Danny Boyle was like a very formative filmmaker for me in my like early days of high school, like freshman, sophomore year, where I started to really kind of explore like directors and their filmographies, and I started to branch out. So Danny Boyle, you know, that string of films he had, like Train Spotting, Sunshine, 28 Days Later, Shallow Grave, an underrated one. Just kind of that string of films he had, where those were great movies that I still love. And, you know, 28 Days Later obviously is included in there. You know, and he was just one of my favorite directors when I was in high school. And, you know, he's had some misses over the years, but really he has a very strong filmography overall, I think. And so 28 Days Later, I think is great. To me, it's like a classic. A lot of people complain that like the visual style of it hasn't aged well. I disagree. I think it's very striking and very like appropriate for the subject matter. It's just a very visceral and unpleasant, you know, complimentary, unpleasant movie that is great. It has some awesome ideas. I think no fault of the movie, but we have been so oversaturated with zombie post-apocalyptic stories.
Yeah.
That it really, I just rewatched the movie for the first time in years, you know, the week before this came out, and I was, you know, it still held up amazingly well, despite just seeing the same kind of post-apocalyptic story over and over, with stuff like The Walking Dead and The Last of Us and things like that. But I think it really still holds up. 28 Weeks Later, I think is a fun time. It's a fun sequel. I do not think it has aged as well as 28 Days Later. I think it has an incredible opening sequence that the movie kind of struggles to, you know, to kind of well, it has a lot of like dumb character decisions. And it's just not as involving of a movie, and it does ultimately kind of feel like, unfortunately, I do think like 28 Weeks Later is almost worse after seeing 28 Years Later.
Oh, interesting.
When you see Alex Garland and Danny Boyle take this story in a new direction, you know, obviously they weren't involved with Weeks, but for them to have their own proper follow-up to this movie, it kind of makes 28 Weeks Later feel a little redundant to me. So yeah, that's kind of what I'll say for now.
That's interesting. There's a piece of trivia related to 28 Weeks Later that I'll talk about in spoilers if I remember, but yeah, that's like really well said. I remember the first time I saw 28 Days Later, I think I was like 16. I didn't realize I was so much older than you, but I was like 16 when it was in theaters, and I saw it in theaters. And like I had talked about this on Patreon, but basically like that's one of those movies that just, it gripped me. It grabbed me from the word go. It was one of the like first movies I remember going home and like looking up Ebert's review of it and reading the review and being like, oh yeah, this is how people like watch movies. This is how people like kind of communicate about the movies they watch or whatever. So it was like kind of formative in that respect for me, but I just adore 28 Days Later, and it really ignited this love affair with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, because a few years later, Sunshine came out, and that was like my favorite movie for the longest time. And it's still just like, it's in the pantheon for me of just like movies that are just for Matt Hurt, basically. Just so great. And yeah, so like I've always wanted a proper, like I wanted a 28 Months Later and then Years Later, but whatever. But I wanted like a proper sequel to 28 Days Later with Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, and I'm just so happy that we got that, which we'll talk about in the actual review. But yeah, 28 Days Later is just one of my just favorites, and it holds up really well. There are some things like the kind of the gritty, grainy sort of like digital filming of it, like that still like is still pristine to me in a way. Like it's still like, it is so evocative of that. Like it's so baked into that atmosphere of that world, and just how it's like a very small budgeted movie. And it's just like, it's so just well done. And it really helps with the atmosphere and everything. But, and I talked about this months ago on the podcast, but I love that, or maybe I talked about it in the Patreon thing for 28 Days Later. But anyway, I love that like 28 Days Later was kind of on the forefront of like this digital filmmaking thing, like using consumer grade cameras for this big like feature film. And that was kind of on the cutting edge of it and everything. And then here we have, this is like 28 Years Later is the biggest movie to be made primarily using iPhones, like a smartphone. And like, I've seen the pictures of like the rigs that they have with all the iPhones and everything. And it's really cool to see that that tradition carry on and everything to an extent. But anyway, 28 Days Later, one of my favorites. I will defend it to the death, and then I will come back from the dead and defend it even more fueled. 28 Weeks Later, I am an apologist for. I don't like it as much as 28 Days Later, obviously, but I appreciate the difference of it, like the different like avenues it takes, and the story is satisfying. The way that it ends is really, really cool too, which ties into what I'll talk about in spoilers for the trivia. But I did not have time to rewatch 28 Weeks Later, but I'm kind of hankering for it after 28 Years Later, even though I do get what you're saying. It is kind of make it a little bit kind of just like, this feels like a direct sequel to 28 Days Later, as it should. So yeah, but that's a rundown of my thoughts on the 28 Days Later franchise at this point. And I am so excited to talk 28 Years Later. And I'm even more excited that we're getting 2 more after this. It's just, what a time to be alive as a fan of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland collaborations. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and go into our non-spoiler review of 28 Years Later. Mitch, how did you feel about this movie?
I fucking loved it.
Nice.
It was, I want to say everything I wanted it to be, but it was more like it gave me something I loved and I didn't even know that I wanted it. Nice. The marketing for this movie, now, when there's a movie that I'm this excited for, I usually can't resist watching the first trailer, but from that point on, I'll kind of tune out as much of the marketing as I can. And, a very, very effective first trailer for this movie that kind of promised just a brutal, relentless, white knuckle horror film. And there are parts of this movie that's that, but this is something so much different than I anticipated. And I will say that going into this, I knew that, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were not going to reteam for this movie and just to give us a rehash of what we got with 28 Days Later. I mean, very often we see these decades later sequels, which now come out all the time, where they're basically a soft remake of the original movie, right?
We've got I Know What You Did Last Summer coming in a few weeks.
And it looks like the same exact thing, and it even has the generic, "You survived this the first time. We need your help."
To be fair, slight tangent, I'm looking forward to that movie, but I know that it's not going to be like top tier or anything. Like, I saw the new trailer, and like there's a scene where Jennifer Love Hewitt at the end of the trailer is like talking to the killer, and she's like, "What are you waiting for?" And it's like, it's an eye roll inducing callback to the original movie where she's screaming, "What are you waiting for, huh?" And like, I ate it up. I loved it in that trailer.
Yeah, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I think the original I Know What You Did Last Summer is a bad movie. but I will say, not that I can't get enjoyment out of it.
Sure.
But I think, in terms of these like legacy quels, reboot quels,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, belated sequels, whatever you want to call them. I think it is kind of telling, though, that like you see a trailer for a movie like that, and we now have legacy quel tropes, right? Of like our new cast of characters calling on help for the old cast of characters, which, like, if you think about it in real life, like that's not how it worked. Like that's not what nobody would behave that way.
Yeah.
How could they possibly help you? So you know, these legacy sequels have gotten so tired that I kind of had faith in Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, just knowing that they don't seem like the type of people who would return to this franchise. And a lot of that stems from me watching, I think it was like 8 years ago at this point, but the Train Spotting sequel that came out.
Oh yeah, I never saw that one.
It was excellent.
Nice.
And it was a completely different tone in story, but really what I took away from that movie was I was like, man, Danny Boyle still has like the juice. Like
nice.
The style of that movie is still like electric in a way that I think has very much carried over to 28 years later. And this movie is like a mashup of so many different styles and tones and narratives. It's like a survivalist story, like a Dickensian coming of age tale, British folk horror, like by way of like Wicker Man almost. There's like shades of like Apocalypse Now and
yes.
And you know, and then sometimes the movie remembers to be a zombie movie as well. Or, you know, infected, whatever the technical term it uses. But by the third act, you know, no spoilers, the movie is deeply emotional in a way I think the original isn't even.
Right.
The movie is very earnest and heartfelt in a way I just would not have expected out of something like this. And I will also say just the themes in this about mother-son relationships, father-son relationships, how we choose to view death, how we live in acceptance or denial of death. You know, this movie is so densely packed with ideas that I honestly, after one viewing, I really feel like I still need to see it again to wrap my head around it. I feel like it's very dense in a way the first one isn't. I mean, yeah, this is Danny Boyle's like best movie in years, in my opinion. And not that he's made a lot of movies in years, but I think this is just excellent. And even Alex Garland, who his last couple directorial efforts, I haven't seen Warfare, but Civil War and Men really kind of disappointed me. I feel like this is just like exactly the kind of the Alex Garland I knew and loved. And not to just mention, like, the editing of this movie is so insane.
Yes.
It really feels like the film of a young man, you know, with way certain images are interspliced. And this movie really feels like it's so many different like vignettes slammed together. And yet it's edited so well that it feels like a cohesive whole. Like that should feel like a mess, right? The way each of these acts are so distinct from one another, and all of the scenes feel so distinct from one another, and yet it flows so beautifully. And honestly, I did not expect to be like on the verge of tears, you know, at the end of 28 years later.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. Absolutely loved it.
Nice.
And tells its own story, but also sets things up in a way that I cannot wait to see.
Yes.
Where this is going, because we get our main character, who is just wonderfully played by Alfie Williams.
Yep.
Spike. amazing performance. Didn't even realize he was the lead character.
Mm-hmm.
We get a full arc, like a kind of a coming of age arc. And yet, there's still, we understand he still has so much growing up to do in these movies. And he has all these different influences from his parents and possibly like a new mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it left me kind of stunned. I can't believe how much I loved this movie. I can see it being very divisive amongst audiences because it's very much actively subverting what you might want from this movie.
Yeah.
For me, I found that to be delightful, the way it subverted what I thought I was going to get. But anyways, I'm done sucking up all the oxygen in the proverbial room here. Matt, I would love to hear what you think.
You're so good. That was well said. And I am going to echo all of those sentiments. I freaking adored this movie. And it's one of those things where like I watched The Life of Chuck a couple of weeks ago, rated it 5 stars, my favorite movie of the year, reviewed it on Tower Junkies. But like, that's a movie that I knew I was going to love. I knew going in, I loved the novella. And 28 years later, I knew I was going to love it because it's Alex Garland and Danny Boyle, because it's 28 years later. It's the movie that I've been waiting for since I saw 28 Days Later in the theater and when I was like perusing the IMDb message boards about it and everything. So like, I knew I was going to like it, but it was a different kind of expectation than I did with Life of Chuck. Cause like, this was like, what if it's not good? But you are absolutely right. Like the style that Danny Boyle uses, like the way that this movie is edited together, like you said, the way that most of like the kills are just shot and that like that technique that he uses, it's like you hit it right on the head when you said that this feels like a young filmmaker trying to prove something or trying to do something unique or interesting. And you would not think that this is a filmmaker who's been doing this for so long, but like he just has like these new tricks, these interesting things to say in the film medium that I loved. I adored that. And one of the things I love about 28 Days Later and Sunshine is the fact that those movies, written by Alex Garland and directed by Danny Boyle, they are in and of themselves, they are somewhat subverting their own genre that they're playing in. So like 28 Days Later is a zombie movie where it's not zombies, they're just infected with rage. So they move fast and everything, and it's all in the blood. So you don't even need to, it's not like a zombie bite. You just, any contact with blood can infect you. And Sunshine is, a space horror, sci-fi, trying to save humanity, but it's also about like religion and faith versus faith and science and like how you marry those two things. And then it becomes this slasher movie at the end. Like those movies are so unique and interesting in their own like fields, their own like genres. And like 28 years later kind of follows that same sort of template where it is, like you said, it's not a movie that you would necessarily expect going in to a 28 years later movie to be, but it is still in that same vein of being a zombie movie that is saying something. Like 28 Days Later had a lot to say about Jim Killing Murphy, his character going from basically being dependent on others to growing into being this protector to, save the day. And it's just like this clear progression. They do that here with Spike, but it's in a different way in that it's his coming of age. He's learning about the world that he's in. He's learning how to navigate things. He's learning about like maybe not who can be trusted, but it's more that he's just being exposed to to outside of the bubble that he's grown up in. And the result is just this fascinating coming of age story that makes me so excited for the next installment. And I'm sure that Nia DaCosta is going to do a great job, but I do wish that Danny Boyle was directing all three. But I'm sure she'll do a great job. But where it leaves us in this installment, like I left it thinking this is clearly part one of a 3-act story, and it's so well done in terms of I think you kind of alluded to this, leaving us on this kind of cliffhanger thing where we've grown with Spike. We know what, like, the man that he is becoming. In the whole trilogy seems to be that it's going to be like the exploration of who he becomes as a human being, as an adult, as a kid, who he grows into. And what this movie leaves us on is there are so many different and distinct influences that can influence him and lead him to be any sort of person. And I find that so compelling and fascinating because we get so much information about like his parents and other parental figures in his life. We get like snapshots of these, and they're so different, and so he gets knowledge about who these people are and what, like, how they treat him and how they speak to him and everything. So we have, like, along with him, we have this knowledge of who he could expect to lead him into like his adult life, who can be his mentor, who can be his guiding light into adulthood. And it's so interesting because I don't know who he's going to choose. I don't know what path he's going to choose, but I love that this movie leaves us on this note that he has these paths to choose, and we have the next 2 movies to see which paths he goes down and how that manifests. And to say all of that about a zombie movie right. is insane. It's so awesome. I love how rich and how rich and amazing this experience was. Yeah.
I think that's like spot on. I feel like we're completely aligned, like, on this movie, which is awesome. Because this is really one when I walked out that I'm like, I don't know why. I feel like there's something about the movie being so earnest and so different from what came before it that I really walked out thinking like almost like worried, like, am I going to be the only person I know who loves this movie? I don't know why I felt that way, but I was just like, I'm like, is everyone I know going to hate this? Because for some reason I just had that feeling where I was like, this is going to be one of those movies where everybody's like, that's so disappointing, blah, blah. And I'm like trying to convince people, no, it's actually
right.
So the fact that everybody kind of feels similar, everyone I know like feels so similarly about it is just, I'm delighted. And I mean, one thing I wanted to like touch on too is like you were talking about, I mean, not only the themes, I love how you're right. It's like this first movie is almost just kind of presenting like, here are the ways he's learning, just like, these are the different ways that you can navigate this world. And you can choose to perceive this world and survive at this world. And we can get more into it in spoilers, but essentially, in the first third, we see his dad's perspective, which is like, you need to kind of push your humanity down. And, it's all about self-survival and numbing yourself to the death that is around you, and death is commonplace. You need to be able to just look at it right in the eyes. And the thing about each of these viewpoints is you can see where they are coming from. Like you can understand and sympathize with a dad wanting that for his son. Because, in the dad's mind, like, you can't be too afraid because you will literally get eaten alive in this world. And obviously, when we have a segment with the mother later on in this movie, there's a much more like humanistic, is that?
Sure.
There's a much more empathetic and like kind of loving viewpoint that she takes towards the world that we can kind of get into in spoilers. And not even to mention kind of who we meet last.
Mm-hmm.
And I think visually too, this movie, you know, we talked about how like the first one is so distinct. There's really no other movie that looks like it. And while this movie maybe isn't the actual cameras, iPhone cameras and stuff, isn't quite as like pops out at you necessarily. You notice it right away. I do think the way it captures like the vibrancy of like the nature, you know, surrounding the island where they live, is awesome. And it communicates something so well, which is like in the first one, everything's just like brown and gray and desolate and just like urban hellscape. And here it's like, well, now it's been 28 years since humans in this area have really been a functioning society. Yeah. And nature has kind of reclaimed a lot of this. And there's an incredible scene where Aaron Taylor Johnson, the father, and Alfie Williams, Spike, are running from this zombie across this bridge. Yes. That's kind of submerged in like a foot of water. And we see behind them like the Northern Lights, like the Aurora Borealis. Yeah. And it's so gorgeous. And it also kind of shows you like, hey, you would probably not be able to see this, right, if humans were still around.
Yeah, the light pollution isn't a factor. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, just like little details like that are just so rich. It gives the movie such a different world and tone than the first one. While still, and you know what, the movie still does deliver some incredible suspenseful, you know, zombie sequences on par with anything in the first. Oh yeah, which is also awesome. Like even though that's not as much of a focus this time around, you know, I do love that. You know, they the very opening scene of this movie involving like a young child escaping infection on the day of the infection. Yeah, that could have been taken right out of the first 28 days.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Or 28 weeks later. You know, it almost like kind of slips the viewer into kind of a sense of like, okay, we're like, the movie's going to be kind of in this mode, you know, and it just slowly as the movie goes on, it gets further and further away from that in a way that I found amazing.
Oh, absolutely. That opening sequence makes, like, we'll talk about it in spoilers, but just the way that it ends, that sequence ends, is just so, it feels so much like the kind of a similar scene in the first 28 days later, the church scene. It just really reminded me of that. And it's just, it's such a great way to just bring us back into this world, into this universe. And I really love that they went for this being like a true, like 28 years later, like the infected, they act similar to how they did 28 years ago in the universe, but there's alterations, there's different things, there's different types, and it seems like such a natural evolution. And the society that they have kind of created on this island is so like richly detailed without overdoing it with like telling us things. I'm sure it'll be expanded upon in the second and third movie, but I was just so taken by the atmosphere, the world building of it, and the world extending of it, that I was just so, I loved it so much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm eager to kind of talk about some of the specifics of like kind of what Spike learns in that second and third act, but yeah, I agree that like the exposition is so deftly handled, and also in a way too that you really don't need to see the first one. I think like you really, it does it in a great way where this movie does not have a bunch of corny callbacks to 28 later. At least not that I caught. I mean, there's so much in this movie, though, that it's easy to miss a lot.
Yeah.
And the exposition of just setting up this society that they live on this island is just so well handled.
Yes. Oh yeah. And you talked a bit about the different kind of zombie stuff we've had in the interim between 28 Days Later and now, but The Walking Dead kind of just drove the genre into the ground, I think. But like you said, The Last of Us is a big one now, but also this isn't zombie fiction, but it's similar. A Quiet Place. I've always felt like A Quiet Place was very evocative of the feel of 28 Days Later to an extent. And this feels like nothing against A Quiet Place. Nothing against A Quiet Place, which also has Cillian Murphy in the second one, but nothing against that franchise. But this feels like Danny Boyle and Alex Garland were like, okay, let's show them how it's done. Let's show the people making A Quiet Place how you really do this kind of thing, and it just worked so well for me.
Well, I mean, think how that's such an interesting comparison, because obviously A Quiet Place is going for this sort of Spielbergian popcorn fare, and it's definitely trying to entertain a much wider swath of movie audiences.
Yeah.
And when you compare it to something like this, I mean, just think, if you want to even compare the father figure of John Krasinski in A Quiet Place to Aaron Taylor Johnson in this movie, Aaron Taylor Johnson is great in this movie. And immediately watching this, I was like, oh yeah, this movie is British as fuck. It's such intense dialect, which is just cool to see, them making this kind of big, I mean, to a degree, this made $60 million at the box office that weekend, right? It's kind of cool to see a wide release movie like this that's just British. It's a British film, which is cool. But anyways, just comparing how much more complex Aaron Taylor Johnson is as a character compared to John Krasinski's character, who's very true of heart and kind of a perfect dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
In pretty much every way. He's just in an impossible situation, and he might make mistakes, but he's always very true of heart, where it's Aaron Taylor Johnson, and again, maybe talk more spoilers, but he is not a perfect dad. He's deeply flawed in a lot of ways, but you also do see that his concern and his love for his son is absolutely genuine.
Yeah. There's a complexity there that's so authentic.
Yes. Yeah. And even some of the poor choices he makes with his marriage, are not the right choices to make, but you also can understand his life probably sucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
His life probably sucks too. And the way he acts feels much more human, I guess.
Yes.
Than somebody like a John Krasinski.
Oh,
who's
absolutely.
Very infallible. And whereas Aaron Taylor Johnson here is just a guy who is weak in some ways and very strong-willed in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the way this movie presents its characters, it's very deft with how it shows its characters, but there's also a lot of complexity to them too. So, I just could not give enough props to Alex Garland and Danny Boyle for delivering something great.
Same. Oh yeah. Anything else we can really kind of dance around in non-spoilers? Anything that jumps out that we haven't touched on, or should we dive into spoilers? I
can dive in.
Nice. Okay, yeah, me too. So we're going to go ahead and go into spoilers for 28 Years Later. I rated it on Letterboxd 4.5 stars out of 5. Mitch, what did you rate it?
4.5 out of 5, which is actually
Beautiful.
exactly what I rated 28 Days Later.
Oh,
as
nice.
well on Letterboxd. So
Nice.
I don't know. I mean, these are almost like neck and neck for me.
Nice. That is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I rated 28 Days Later 5 stars, and it's also referenced in the lyrics to the theme song, courtesy of Mike White. And his partner Dustin, his music partner Dustin, for As Good as It Gets. Because in the lyrics to the theme song for the show, part of the lyrics are comatose 4 weeks, but it's 4, like the number 4, so 28 days. So anyway, yeah. So that's in the full theme song by As Good as It Gets, called A Little Mad Sometimes, available wherever you get music. But we are going to go ahead and go into spoilers. For 28 Years Later, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back, we're going to be spoiling 28 Years Later, so stay tuned.
If your eyes drop, they will get the top of you. Boom, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the wall. Try to think of something different. Oh, God, keep me from going lunatic. Boom, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the wall. 7, 6, 11, 5, 4, 17, 32 the day before.
All right, so spoilers on for 28 Years Later, and that first trailer was just incredible. Like, goddamn.
Amazing.
Yes.
It's not necessarily the most accurate representation of what the movie is,
No.
but it's like a work of art in and of itself.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And the movie kind of, I feel like there are those quick like vignettes or those quick like shots of, I guess, their visions or dreams that Spike is having, like the vision of the deer in the forest, and it's all kind of in a red hue.
Those
and all
images
of that.
are terrifying.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so good. I mean, the whole buildup of when they are going into the woods, him and his dad, and we have that poem being read, and we have these spliced in images of like medieval medieval film footage. And then we have like, they show us that big bulbous, like fat zombie, and they show it like from the back, and its back is like rippling and jiggling, and you don't even know what it is at first. Incredible.
So wild.
Making, so visceral. There's nothing like that in the first 28 Days Later.
No.
Even. And I mean, that's when I knew, like, I was already enjoying the movie, but like when that sequence happened, I was like, oh, this is gonna be an amazing movie.
Yeah. And I love that they kind of we have that visual kind of callback to those images of like the medieval like media whatever of the archers and everything. So like when they're shooting at the Alpha on the causeway, when they're running back, like you see that's interspliced with like the archers, doing their archery stuff, like interspersed with those same shots from that sequence earlier. And like, it's just so interesting because it's communicating to me that like they had, because they're under quarantine and because they only have what they have, like, I presume like that is footage that they showed. That is like media that they showed those archers to train them, because that's how they trained, is like from whatever piece of media that was. And
oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it does kind of remind me a little bit, especially like that opening, that opening kind of like montage of them going out onto the mainland, when it's interspersed with all those things, which I guess it does show at least a couple of clips from 28 Weeks Later, and that kind of fast, rapid thing. But It reminded me a little bit of the opening scene of 28 Days Later, with the monkeys being shown the footage of war and protest and violence and everything.
Oh, wow.
It just kind of reminded me of that. And what kind of blows my mind, like saying that out loud now, is like, where are the monkeys? Where are the monkeys now? Where are the ones that are watching this and seeing that? I don't know if that's the intention or not, but that's just the connection I made, but I liked it.
Well, that's what's so cool about this movie is it's so dense with ideas that there's really so much you can pick apart. And it's a very thrilling feeling when you walk out of a movie and, you've seen something where a screenwriter like Alex Garland, which honestly, after a movie like Men, I thought he was maybe no longer capable of this, which is like presenting ideas without telling you explicitly what you need to think about them.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was, it's just such a great feeling to walk out of something like that. And I think, after the first kind of act of the movie, where after the chase scene where they're running back and they make it back to the island, obviously so thrilling, but they're already back in the island. I saw that a good friend of mine, my friend Garrett, and I turned to him and I was like, where is this movie going to go from here? Because I kind of just assumed, I was like, oh, this is the movie, right? Like the movie is going to be them trying to survive out here.
Right.
It kind of, the movie is sort of that, because he does go back out there just with his mother, but that's not really what the movie is either. No. Which is just so awesome. It's so great to see a movie. It still plays with these elements of like, oh, you're going to meet people you might not be able to trust. Like, who's the real monster? And, there are elements that we've seen before, even like the idea of like zombies kind of evolving. Like we've seen that in things like George A. Romero's like Land of the Dead and stuff like that. But like, that's not really like none of these elements, they're kind of like the spice, to this movie. It's not really like the main substance, right? Like we're always focused on these characters, and especially Spike and how he's reacting to the world. So I don't know. It's so awesome.
It's so awesome. Some of the things that jumped out to me about this movie is the way that it really feels. First of all, to go back to Alex Garland, I remember after Civil War came out, which, by the way, I really liked Warfare, and I really liked Civil War.
I thought Civil War was okay. I have not seen Warfare yet.
Yeah, it's good. It's just it's good, but it's interesting. I'll say that. So I remember, like, I think it was after Civil War came out. I remember Alex Garland was saying, like, I might not direct anymore. I might just go back to just writing and everything, and just do the screenwriting thing. Because I feel like I've done enough directing and all that. And like at the time, I was like, oh man, I hope that doesn't happen, because I love him as a director. But I'm like, if we can get some more like Alex Garland and Danny Boyle stuff, like I am all for it.
Yeah. Look, Danny Boyle's 68 years old. He's still got plenty of time left.
Yes.
He's not a super old man. But like, can we get like 5 more? They don't even need to be 28 Days Later movies. Like, can we just get like 5 more Danny Boyle, Alex Garland collaborations?
Absolutely.
It's so satisfying to see them come together again and make something that, especially people often complain like, oh, cinema's dead and there's no original movies anymore. And yes, this is like the second sequel to a movie made 20 years ago.
Right.
However, this feels like an original movie.
It really does.
This does not feel like, oh yeah, like that was a good sequel.
Yeah.
Like this feels as satisfying as I think just seeing another Alex Garland, Danny Boyle like original collaboration. Like it feels like something original. So yes, it is a sequel, and yes, they probably got the budget they did because it is a sequel and it is a property. But I really do think this was kind of a great, like, auteur heist film, where they kind of snuck in all the ideas that they wanted to sneak in under the guise of a 28 days later sequel, because the last act of this movie with Ray Fiennes as the doctor, his character really reminded me of like Colonel Kurtz in
Me too.
About Us Now, or I don't know if you've ever read Blood Meridian by Courtney McCarthy, but there's a character, the judge. He's kind of like a benevolent version of the judge.
Okay.
Like the villain of that book, but it's somebody who has kind of almost embraced this like decayed society around them, right? And very similar with like Colonel Kurtz, like they've embraced the madness and like the death around them, and it has made them kind of fucking kooky. Like Ray Fiennes' character, he is a little kooky. Like he's made a bone temple, all right? Like not everybody makes a bone temple, okay? But he has chosen, and this is something like, this is something that like Spike learns in his final act, which is like, hey, your dad showed you this point of view where like death is just, it's commonplace. You have to accept it. You can't look away from it. And you need to be able to kill. Like you need to be able to kill without remorse or without mercy to survive. And there's probably some truth in what he's saying to survive in that society. Because they would have died if, they had not killed some of the zombies. However, kind of what Ray Fiennes is saying is, and it's very interesting that we never see him kill any of the zombies. He sedates them. Yeah. Right? Which is so fascinating. And a little bit of movie magic there where he seems to kind of have like a poison dart that does anything. But I'll forget it. Like, and it's such a beautiful, it's so beautiful the way it's done. But
he's a little bit like Batman. He doesn't kill.
Right, he doesn't kill, but he also like, he's not afraid of any of these beasts. But anyways, he's kind of like learned like, hey, no, like death can still be meaningful. And like in this world, like where death is everywhere, like one of the best things you can hope for is to have a death that's like dignified. Yes. And I just, and like we should, and I'm choosing not to just kill without mercy, even though I don't think anybody would blame him for killing. Right. People, but he chooses not to.
Yeah, but he does kill Jodie Comer's character out of a mercy killing.
That is interesting. Yeah.
But it's just like, it's like a physician assisted suicide.
The way she walks away. Right. Yeah. It's very much a like it's different, I guess, because it's like you are going to die. Like there's nothing you can do. But like I'm willing, would you rather die on your own terms? Yeah. And die peacefully than in absolute agony. And I mean that whole sequence, the way
oh my God.
It's done. Yeah. Where the mom kind of like nods at him and he like blows the sedative dart into young Spike and she just walks away with him and he comes back with like her skull. Yes. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe how emotional that was.
Oh my God. Yeah. With all the like flashes, like you see Spike's like just mental state, him going through memories of his mother. It's amazing.
And the thing, that was so great. And obviously the mother kind of imparts this lesson to him too of where every character kind of imparts this lesson to him. It's very like, feels like almost like a fable, that you're watching a lot in this movie. Whereas like the mother kind of teaches him like empathy and kindness in a world that like doesn't show you any.
Right.
Like the birthing scene.
Yes.
Of the zombie when she grips its hands that was another unbelievable moment.
Yes. Oh my God. Everything about it is insane, like incredible. Like I did not expect that from this movie, but it was also very in keeping with just like that. It's a horror movie and like that's a horrific encounter, but that's the thing that I've kind of really been thinking about since I saw this movie is that what it does is it's subverting what we expect from this type of movie, this type of post-apocalyptic movie. And it's something I really appreciate because the first two movies, they are bleak. They are like 28 Weeks Later is kind of an interesting thing. Granted, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland didn't work on it, but like that movie has this veneer of hope, like established, like, okay, they're like the virus is dying out. Then through, a comedy of errors, they're spreading it and everything, and it gets spread, and it ends on a bleak note of like, oh, it's now in Europe. Which, by the way, the piece of trivia that I read was that apparently Alex Garland was asked like, how does this fit in with the ending of 28 Weeks Later? Because it's very much established, like the UK is under quarantine, but we saw in the end of 28 Weeks Later that it arrived in Paris. And like he said, I just imagine that, Paris was probably nuked and it stopped the spread there. Just like imagining like, Jesus Christ.
That was kind of that Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's way of saying, we didn't really like that movie.
Yes. Exactly.
That was 100% them like, we didn't like that movie.
Yeah.
We're not acknowledging it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. But
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, but the thing I love about this is that you go into these types of movies, you go into a post-apocalyptic movie expecting bleakness and hopelessness for the world and everything. And this is the inverse of that to an extent where we're seeing that it's not that the world is going to be saved. It's not that, infection has been here for 28 years and it's evolved and everything, but, it's not going to end. This is just the status quo now. But what the movie does is it explores these pockets of humanity, and like having Dr. Kelson be this like caring, like father figure person. Like I really expected, and this is a brilliant misdirect from Garland and Boyle, but like I was expecting like, oh, they're going to do the same thing they did in the first movie. They're going to introduce a character. Yeah. We're going to think that they're safe, but it's going to end with like, oh my God, like Dr. Kelson really is insane. Like I was expecting that fully, but
yeah, he's got a bone temple,
exactly.
Like it's I mean, it's really cool. It's visually striking,
but
it's
absolutely
where it's like, yeah, well, that's a scary guy.
Yeah.
That.
Oh, yeah.
He's a scary guy. And it's so amazing how it subverts this and shows he's this extremely kind person.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, and it's so much more satisfying that way as well. And I think, I mean, and Ray Fiennes, his performance is so amazing.
So good.
He says so little, but is so impactful. I mean, I absolutely loved like everything about that third act.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I don't know if you have more to say, but I'm curious if you have thoughts on the very last 2 minutes of the movie, because that does seem to divide people a lot. And I will say, tonally, like it's jarring. Like,
yes,
intentionally so, but like. I'm curious, like if you have any thought, like if that worked for you or not.
So it did, and I do have thoughts on that. First, I want to preface this by saying that there were a couple of like 28 Days Later, I would say callbacks or like references there. So the first one, first of all, obviously just firebombing a gas station, classic 28 Days Later thing.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But also like it being a shell station and the S had been taken down, so it's just hell. It's reminiscent of the sequence at the end of 28 Days Later where they're making the O for the sign for the pilot, and there's that quick shot of it just saying hell.
That was awesome.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I didn't catch this, but apparently in that last scene when Spike is running from the infected and he's at that dead end, basically, when Jack O'Connell says hello, I guess that they used audio from Cillian Murphy in 28 Days Later saying hello in London.
Okay.
For that as a slight misdirect. And like, I love that because I didn't catch it in the moment or anything, but that whole lead up there, that whole lead up of the introduction of Jimmy, that whole lead up, I was thinking like, oh, he's going to run in, like he's going to meet Jim and Selena. And like, that's going to be like the cliffhanger is like, oh, he's going to meet them and they're going to be prominent in the second movie. But he doesn't meet them. He meets Jimmy, and like the friend I saw it with, she and I were talking about this, and she was like, I think Jimmy is a good guy. And I was like, I really don't think so.
No, I don't.
And then here's the thing. Did you read, like, there was an article about how they very much intentionally used certain imagery that gives like some pause to people in the UK watching it, but I'll find that. But
like the children's television show host who
yes,
reportedly sexually abused like literally hundreds of boys.
Yes.
And the gang of people are wearing wigs and outfits that are literally identical to what Jimmy Savile wore.
Exactly.
There's obviously, and the character's name is Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's obviously not a coincidence, and it is intentional. And I'm curious how that plays out in the second. Me too. Because that's incredibly unsettling.
Yes.
And yes, some people are very rubbed the wrong way by it, which I can understand because it doesn't seem like that's that long ago, that history of that person. I'm very intrigued kind of what they're going to do with that character. Obviously, earlier in the movie, we see the person hung upside down, who had been tortured, and it says Jimmy written down. So that's not a great sign of, and I believe we see Jimmy's name spray painted at one point.
On the side of a building that has like some prophetic scripture thing on it. Yeah.
I really liked the ending as well, just because it was so balled out insane.
Yes. It was so weird.
I get it if it didn't work for you, because it's like, or if it didn't work for somebody, like that I can understand. I don't think it would like ruin the movie for me, but I can understand just because we just got done with this like incredibly somber, like beautiful, emotional moment. And then we get something that's like pretty much like goofy as hell almost. Yes. I had a friend, I can't take credit for this observation, but I had a friend point something out to me that I thought was pretty interesting. And my friend Eric, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he mentioned that earlier, like in the movie, before he leaves with his father, we see Spike holding like his a Power Rangers figure. Yeah. And he's like talking to it, and obviously kind of in that scene, it's kind of like a time to put your toys away. Like you're no longer a kid, like you're going out and, into the adult world, very scary adult world in this case. And the end, the way this is shot is very much the way these people are flipping and kicking. They're very much like Power Rangers.
I had the same thought. Yeah.
It's shot like this Power Rangers scene, and this is potentially like another perspective, right, of this world was like, these people have never given up like a sort of childlike perspective of the world, but here and obviously like here they have a very probably most likely very fucked up childlike perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, like I don't even want to touch like the Jimmy Savile stuff involving this. I don't even know how that's going to play into it. But you know, I thought that Power Rangers kind of parallel. I was like, well, that can't be a coincidence.
I had the same
no
thought.
Action scene that's filmed like that.
No,
in the rest of the movie, where people are just doing like goofy ass kicks and flips and stuff like that.
Yeah, I made that same connection, and it's like my thought was like, oh, this is like going to be something that's like attracting him to them. Like that's because by the end of the movie, I'm sitting there thinking in terms of this being the first part of Spike's growth into adulthood. And so we are left with 3 distinct paths that he can go. He can follow the path of Dr. Kelson, be this benevolent person who very world weary and human, like has humanity in him, or he can follow in his father's footsteps, be this kind of just like not rage filled, but like this deeply flawed human being, this deeply flawed person with, you know, shaky morals and like being comfortable with lying and to put on a face for the world. Or if he falls into Jimmy's like path, that's who knows what that entails, but I would assume that it's not good. And that like the linchpin of that, the idea that Jimmy is likely going to be reminiscent to him of his childhood, the action figures, the Power Ranger stuff. That is something that I feel like is going to be something that Spike can kind of escape into and kind of have this.
That's a great point, right? Because that would be like a temptation of like diving into to that. Yes.
And my friend that I saw she also pointed out that she was reminded of A Clockwork Orange with them and the way that they kind of behaved, and that totally just kind of blew my mind a little bit.
That's an excellent point as well. I didn't even kind of consider the Clockwork Orange comparison, but that is super apt. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. So yeah, I'm so excited. I've got 2 words for you, Mitch. Alpha Dong.
Yeah, you know what? I gotta say that, you know, people are kind of, for some reason, like film Twitter and stuff, they're obsessed with dicks and nudity, but not in like a funny way. In like a let's argue about this way. Like, and I got to say that I really avoided like kind of any sort of spoilers for this movie. But one thing I wasn't able to avoid was a lot of people saying, "Oh, there's tons of dicks in this movie." I don't know. I mean, there was some alpha dog, but like, I was expecting like wall to wall. Like,
me too.
Yeah, and I was just like, I think if by a lot of dick, they just mean a lot of dick. Like it was really big. Like is that what it was? A big dick. I mean, he's the alpha. Isn't that gonna have a small dick? You know,
right? Yeah. Oh,
that's why they call. That's probably part of why they call him the alpha. He's also like 7 feet tall.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I thought that was such a cool detail.
Same here.
Like, and I just love how I also love how they made him like quote unquote smart. But he was smart, but he was not like over the top. They just give little details. Like at one point we saw bloaters like kind of communicate with each other. Remember when one like points to the one like, "Hey, look over there." I thought that was great, and I kind of liked how it was like, oh, his kind of like quote unquote like intelligence is like he's kind of just like staring and just thinking how he's gonna get you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, like and how he's gonna get you isn't that crazy. He's just gonna run towards you, but he has this capability where he's not acting on sheer impulse. And even the scene we talked about with the mother helping that rage zombie give birth. I do love how it's like, yep, they're evolved, but they don't make it so over the top because it's still only
Yeah.
been a few decades. You know, they're not going to be. It's not going to be like a Smart Hulk situation,
Sure,
like that, where
it's like a more subtle, evolution than like Robert Carlyle in 28 Weeks Later. It's like just a better evolution of that idea.
Much better. It's much better than that because I don't love the Robert Carlyle evolution in that, and I think I think even like I love the scene after she helps her give birth, like she just lunges right after again. And I love that detail because it's like like it's still that moment is sad, and like now it's gonna try to kill you again.
Yeah, the whole idea of them reproducing and like that is so fascinating to me, just because like the mechanics of it all, but also like just this idea that they can birth an uninfected baby is wild to me. And like I love the line where Dr. Kelson is just like the miracle of the placenta or something. It's just fascinating.
The fact that they have an urge that isn't, I'm going to tear you apart with my teeth.
Yes.
Right? Like the fact that urge exists in them at all is like, that is interesting, you know? It shows there's like some depths, however, like extremely primal. Yeah. There is something more to them. Chi
Lewis Perry, by the way, who plays Samson, he said in an interview that he became like very close to Ralph Fiennes back when I guess he was like a stunt. He did stunt work, or he was a double for Hagrid in Harry Potter, and he got to know Ralph Fiennes during that time, and like they work out together. They're like, he's like, yeah, we're like best friends and stuff. I thought that was sweet. I'll find the link and put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah. I would love to see that.
Yeah. What else? I had another thought that I was gonna bring up, but I can't really remember. That's what it was. The the ripping the heads off of people and seeing the spinal column.
A nice little like Predator homage, obviously, which you mentioned earlier. I mean, you can't do that and not think of the movie Predator.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was cool. And they didn't do it so much where it started to be like, okay, like every person's happening to, but it was awesome the way it like swung ahead.
Yes.
And, like, clubbed the guy at one point. I mean, TV still does deliver on some like awesome zombie stuff too, while having so much more than that, but still kind of understanding like, like you want to have like some thrills.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh yeah. Like, guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, Brandon Cruz, who was on with his wife for Mission Impossible. He messaged me the other day and asked, let me find it. He said, hey, is 28 Years Later a horror movie still? Debating on watching it. And I said, oh yes, it is 100% still horror. Also a really interesting coming of age story too. I freaking loved it. So I'm curious to see what he thinks of it, but
it's a horror movie that's also much more than that. And there are stretches of the movie that aren't horror.
Too. It's like the best kind of horror movie. That's something else that I thought was ballsy and really kind of going back to the third act of it all. Something ballsy that I really appreciate. And again, it's that subversive way that Alex Garland has with scripting stuff and Danny Boyle has with filming it and shooting it and directing it. But that subversion of expectation, like the climax of this movie isn't, I respect them so much for not trying to top like the In the House in a Heartbeat sequence from the first one, which I think is one of the best, best sequences, like one of my favorite things in all of movies that I've seen. Like like that score, like it's an incredible climax to a movie. But I love that the climax of this movie, like the big like climactic moment isn't him facing like a horde of infected. It's not him like fighting to do this or anything. It's not fighting against like a human villain or anything. It's him recognizing and realizing that he's about to lose his mother and really wrestling with that. And like, that is the emotional climax of the movie. And I thought that was so spectacular and so brilliant, because you're expecting an all-out like assault on a mansion like in 28 Days Later, but you get this incredibly meditative, this very like personalized emotional resolution that is gonna just carry on throughout the rest of this trilogy that they're making. And just goddamn, that was so good. So good.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was not at all where I expected the movie to be headed. Same. But it and because of that, it bowled me over like even more. You know?
Yeah. And something else about the end of the movie. I had this thought, but I can't even. It's gone away. Going back to the visions that he was having, these dreams and everything, with those visions of like the deer, and like we see it escalate throughout the movie. I need to watch it again, but my understanding or my memory, my thought is that we first see him seeing deer in, like, he has this dream of deer in like in the forest being feasted on by infected. And then once they see the alpha and they see they don't, not when they see the alpha, but when they see the head on the tree with the spinal column and everything, then the next sequence, I think, is where he incorporates that into the dream. Like, he sees that in the dream. So it's that escalation as he's learning more about the world outside of his island. He's like, the fear and the tension within him is like manifesting in these nightmares. And I love that, because it's just charting his growth, his experience outside of the island. And I didn't really understand. Well, no, I guess I did understand, but the bloater kind of thing when they're sleeping, when he and his mother are sleeping, and we see that she killed it to protect him, and he's like, it's incorporating into his dreams. What did you think of that?
So interesting.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm not entirely sure what to make of that.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment, just like on a narrative purpose, I was like, oh well, like at first I was like, is she starting to get like the rage vibe or something?
I feel like that was like the misdirect, because like the first thing we see of her is her knocking over the water glass and stuff in her room, and it's like, it's shot in a way that it looks like she's infected. Like, it looks like she's got it.
I also think it was kind of trying to say that like these people's viewpoints are not one-to-one, like they are like multifaceted, because she's like, you know what, like, just like the father, like, she has a little bit of that like survival instinct too, of like, oh, I have no problem killing, actually. I think it's
maternal protecting too, because like that's such a and also okay, I'm piecing this together now, I'm putting this together in my brain right now, but my like read of it now that I'm thinking about it is that, again, this movie is all about Spike interacting with different people who are potential guidance for him in life, potential mentors, parental figures. It's like, this is him meeting so many people. And like, we're seeing here, after we had this extended sequence with him and his father, we're seeing that his mother, while throughout the whole movie she is kind of she's very confused, she's not present throughout the movie all that much, but like in that moment I feel like that's communicating that there's a moment of clarity where she is protecting her son in a very gruesome way and protecting him from that knowledge, protecting him from the fact that they almost got killed in their sleep. It's that maternal like instinct. And I think that's just another facet of, parental like guidance for Spike throughout the movie.
Right. Like, I don't want to make it, cause he was supposed to be on the lookout. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't want you to feel like you failed.
Right. Yep.
You know, like that's also protecting you.
Yeah. And also, I don't want you to have this knowledge that we were almost killed, like that we were almost turned. Like, I don't want you to know that we came so close to that, because I don't want to burden you with that fear. Like, I want, yeah.
And it's interesting too, because like the father too, like he's not like entirely unsympathetic, because like,
right.
Even when Spike is like, I did terrible, like I fucked everything up. He's like, no, he's like, you did good. Like, you're a kid. Like, you did as well as you could be expected to do.
Yes.
You know, like for your first time out.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I thought that was like interesting too, because again, in a lesser movie, the dad would be like, you pussy, like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like, but like, again, like just Garland's screenplay is so great at just so in such a simple way, he adds these like layers to each of these characters.
And like, I need to revisit Men, but I mean, I didn't like it near that. That's probably my least favorite of Garland's directorial efforts, but to throw a little bit of shade at that movie, I'm so glad that we got like Ex Machina Garland and not Men Garland. Like, I like that we got like a nice return to form for Garland.
Yes, this feels like the total inverse of Men, where like this is a great story with tons of great themes that you can analyze forever that doesn't give you one explicit reading. Whereas I felt like Men was like barely a story that is just with barely characters that are all just there to tell you one very explicit allegory.
Yes.
And I just found that very boring, even though the movie's like very visually, very visually well put together and well acted and stuff. But you're just like, okay, like what? There's nothing here for me to latch onto.
Right. Yeah.
And you can look at the poster of that movie and be like, I already know exactly what the message is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's just, I just think with someone like Alex, not that I like think the message is not offensive, or nor do I necessarily disagree with it. It's just it's just like Alex Garland. Like, I know you're capable of more than this.
Exactly. I
know you can do better.
Yeah. It feels like Men was a message idea that he had, and then maybe struggled to build something around it. Whereas like 28 Days Later is like, you know, a concept, a genre that he is infusing with messaging that he has. And Sunshine, same thing. Like, these different themes and ideas, they're very of a type of movie. Same with Ex Machina even. And Men is just like kind of just, it's a weird anomaly, I think. I don't know. But
yeah. He swung for something unique, but I don't think it totally landed.
Yeah. What else? I feel like we could go forever on 28 Years Later.
I mean, it's a great movie.
Yes.
It's fucking fantastic. I'm so happy that it did well in the box office.
Me too.
And not that I'm not somebody who's like, oh, look at what are the box office reports every Sunday morning or anything like that. This is more just something for me. I'm like, I want more, so I want this to do well.
Yes.
You know? So like, I don't want like a Horizon Kevin Costner situation where it's like, well, they made a second one, but we're never gonna see it.
Yeah.
You know? So that's kind of I never saw that movie.
Me neither.
But you know, I just didn't want. So you know, I'm not always obsessed with box office stuff. I find sometimes that like type of discourse like too often dominates like movie discourse rather than just like talking about the movies. You know,
absolutely.
But it's one of those cases where I'm like, the sequel delivered exactly, or the sequel fucking ruled. It was amazing. It did well. I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy camper.
Same here.
And then I got this very fulfilling discussion here on the podcast about it too. So yeah. Week.
It's so good. And I'm so happy that we don't have to wait long, because January 16th, 2026, The Bone Temple.
It's in the can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm filled with so much joy. Like, it's just so, it's so damn good. I can't wait to see it again, honestly. Any final thoughts on 28 years later?
You know what? Even if the other movies suck, which I doubt they will, it's worth it because this movie is so good.
Nice. I agree completely, and I will have you under contract to come back for the Bone Temple.
I would be more than happy to.
Nice. All right. Well, once again, both Mitch and I rated 28 Years Later 4.5 stars out of 5. Of course, you can follow Mitch on Letterboxd at wounded_kite. And we're going to do probably a brief secondary review for F1 the movie, which I'm happy with because I don't have much to say about it.
I could knock that out pretty fast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and go into the secondary review. Check the show notes for timestamps, all of that nonsense, but I'm going to do a quick plug for all of the stuff that I do beforehand. So before we get to our secondary review, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the show, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe to and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or whatever your preferred podcast app is. And don't forget to subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Podcast YouTube channel as well, where the episodes are also posted, and I have some video content up there as well. And if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own, you can go to Libsyn and use promo code OBSESS. When you sign up for a new account, you'll get up to 2 months free depending on when you sign up during the month, and we'll get a commission on it as well. More details on that in the show notes of this episode. And now back to the show.
They tell me I view obsessively.
And before we get to the secondary review again, I do want to mention that you can also, apparently, you can find the podcast, or you can find a promo card for the podcast somewhere in Fishers, Indiana, because I got a tweet from someone who in a few places, since I moved to the north side of Indy, I have put like the little promo cards on like the community boards at like coffee shops and like Einstein's. And I got a tweet from someone I don't think, it doesn't follow me, and I don't know if they listen to the podcast. I think his name's Joshua, but he just sent a picture and said, found this or saw this in Fishers, Indiana. And I was like, oh, right on. Awesome. So that was cool. Anyway, let's go into our secondary review. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back, we're going to be talking in non-spoilers about F1, the movie.
Formula One is a team sport. It always was. Listen, let's get this straight. We all lose our jobs if you can't pull off a miracle.
No pressure. None.
The only question here is, why did Sonny Hayes come back to F1?
I think it's really wonderful that Apex are giving second chances to the elderly.
It's all right. You're just worried I'm quicker than you.
All right, and F1 the movie is opening in theaters this weekend, June 27th, and the premise, according to IMDb, is a Formula One driver comes out of retirement to mentor and team up with a younger driver. Director for this movie was Joseph Kosinski, and writers were Joseph Kosinski and Aaron Kruger. The cast includes Brad Pitt, Kerry Condon, Javier Bardem, Damson Idris, and Tobias Menzies. So, Mitch, how did you feel about F1, the movie, which apparently is the full title?
Yeah, well, it's funny how before you said this, you were like, we're going to be talking in non-spoiler thoughts.
Yeah.
About the movie. And I was like, do you even need to talk about spoilers?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you spoil this movie? And look, I love a good motivational sports movie as the next guy.
Oh, yeah.
Creed, Warrior, two great recent examples. By recent, I mean in the past 10 to 15 years. But,
sure.
I love a good motivational sports movie, and I have no problem. I think Creed and Warrior are both movies that Gavin O'Connor's Warrior from 2010 or 2011, one of those, and obviously Ryan Coogler's Creed.
Yeah.
I think those are probably the two best ones of the last 10, 15 years. And, those are examples of movies that they hit the expected beats of your motivational sports movie. There are not really any narrative surprises in that movie. Maybe a couple, but but it's they're not subversive movies. I would not really
Right.
describe it as subversive. Any things they do to subvert expectations are pretty minor tweaks. This is a movie that hits all those beats, and yet I don't think, unfortunately, it does any of them exceptionally well. You know, Joseph Kosinski, he knows how to craft a handsome looking picture. You know, Brad Pitt's a handsome looking guy, and the whole thing is sleek and smooth like a Formula One car, not to use an annoying analogy there, but it's a perfectly watchable movie. I found the racing sequences to be fairly entertaining. I thought that the only real gripping moment in the movie was again, this is not a spoiler, just exactly what you would expect, the climactic racing sequence. I found that to be the one time where I was a little bit on the edge of my seat, and I don't know if it was just the way it was filmed or if I was just maybe a little more invested than I thought I would be. But I was a little disappointed. I thought the racing sequences were just fine. And we saw this in a LiMAX screen at the Castleton AMC. I thought they were fine. I'm sure they were very difficult to film, but I didn't find them necessarily engaging in the same way I found like something like Top Gun Maverick's flight scenes engaging.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt is kind of doing this performance that I think he could do in his sleep. That doesn't mean it's not entertaining, right? Tom Cruise, same thing. I mean, this literally is Top Gun Maverick with race cars, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, you're old and you're past your prime, but I'm still the best, you know?
Yes.
And unfortunately, I just think that it does not hit any of these beats like in an exceptional way.
Right.
It never went over the edge of from fine to decent to like great sports movie. And I just think something with this caliber of talent and money and resources.
Oh yeah.
And seemingly like a lot of effort put into the technical aspects of this movie. I just don't think it rose above a lot of other just mid-tier sports movies to me, which I found disappointing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in the movie's 2.5 hours long for no reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I feel like it's because it crams in every single motivational sports movie trope in the book. So like, we have to have them all in here, you know?
Yes.
Like, we need like the young hotshot who's like jealous of the older guy. Like, we have a subplot in here about the young hotshot driver's mother being mad at Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And then her not being mad at him anymore. You know, I'm just like, why are we doing this? You know, like, why are we
absolutely
spending time with this? Like, you know, it just felt so unnecessary. And I mean, obviously just an unbelievable cast in this movie. So of course it has a great cast.
Yeah.
But the characters are never, you know, I think the only one who really stands out is Brad Pitt just because he's so fun. He's Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have someone like Carrie Condon who's like amazing. She's just pretty forgettable. The movie tries to kind of make her stand out by having her be kind of like a female sort of gearhead, you know, like she's really into designing the cars and stuff. But she's still just playing that. That's all window dressing. She's still just the stereotypical love interest.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those movies where it's just like, what can you? Here's the thing. I would say if this is just your kind of movie, like if you love a good motivational sports movie and you just like, they're just catting, and we all have our genres like that, you know, like I have like certain types of horror movies or certain franchises that are just like, you know what? If it's this kind of movie, I'm going to have fun to some degree.
Yeah.
If that's you for motivational sports movies, I would recommend this movie. I would say it's probably worth your time.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I gotta say I was disappointed in this.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time telling people that they need to go see it.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, what did you rate it on Letterboxd?
I gave it 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
I could have even gone 2.5 out of 5. Like, honestly, like I'd say a gentleman's 3 stars.
Yes, that same here. And like, I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I'm going to echo those thoughts. And in that echoing of the thoughts, I'm going to think I probably should have rated it 2.5 stars. But the driving sequences, the racing sequences were, for me, thrilling.
Okay.
But it also was thrilling when I saw it in Ford v Ferrari. It was even fine when I saw it in Gran Turismo, which is not a movie really that's... I mean, I think I was kind of favorable on it, but like, those are 2 examples of movies, like racing movies, like underdog stories, that just made me realize, like, I'm at this point with F1, I'm kind of tired of that. It's the same feeling I get when I see a music biopic. It follows a formula. It does that formula exactly how it does in all the other iterations. Doesn't do anything new or interesting with it. Not that it needs to, because like you said, if this is your type of movie, you'll probably enjoy it. But when I see the same formula used so many times and nothing really unique or different employed, I get bored. And like, even with really cool like racing sequences and stuff, like the plot surrounding it, the ideas in it are not that compelling to me. And it's funny you say that Brad Pitt could do this role in his sleep. It's funny because he apparently had, like, he's a huge, like, auto racing fan and F1 fan, I guess. And he was in the running and, like, campaigned heavily for, or he was going to be in a racing movie with, I can't remember who was going to co-star, but that movie ended up turning into Ford v Ferrari. And he obviously wasn't in that movie. So, like, it's weird to read that trivia and see this movie because it doesn't feel like this is like a passion project for Brad Pitt. It doesn't feel like it's the type of movie that he's wanting to do for so long. It just feels like Brad Pitt in a movie.
I see this movie, like, I see the marketing for this movie in, like, what me, like, the movie nerd in me says. Most people probably don't fucking think this hard about movies that are the trailer, but I do. People like us do. I see this, I go, oh, well, Top Gun Maverick was like the biggest movie ever that year.
Yeah,
not ever. It was like one of the biggest movies of that year. It was a massive hit. Everybody loved it, like critics and audiences alike, and it made it an insane amount of money. He's like, I'm gonna do that with racing. Like, I'm gonna do my Top Gun Maverick now. Like, and watching the trailers for that, it's such an easy sell because you're like, oh, like, I was excited for this movie because I go, oh, I can immediately picture what the awesome version of this movie would be.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just like literally I went in being like, I just want this to be Top Gun Maverick with Brad Pitt and racing. Yeah. That was all I needed. And it is that, but it's not. It feels like reheated leftovers. Like this feels like when people are talking about, like, who is really going to be talking about Joseph Kosinski's filmography 20 years from now? Probably nobody. People will be talking about Top Gun Maverick 20 years from now.
Sure.
But, like, this to me feels like what I imagine most of Joseph Kosinski's movies feel like, which is just like fine.
Yeah.
So Top Gun Maverick before this was the only Joseph Kosinski movie I'd ever seen.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes, I missed it because I remember hearing Tron Legacy was disappointing. I remember hearing Oblivion was disappointing. I remember, so I just kind of never got around to it.
Yeah.
I never even, he had that movie Only the Brave, which is really good, but like, I didn't even know that movie existed. And so, and watching this, I was like, oh, I feel like this is what probably a lot of his movies feel like, which is like sleek and expensive looking and competent in a lot of ways, but like this is just a movie. It felt so hollow, like when I was watching it. I was just like, there's not much here. And trust me, I go to a movie like this. I mean, I don't go to any movie being like, I hope this sucks. Obviously I go to every movie hoping to like it, but like this is a movie I was like, I'm ready to love this. Like, I don't need this to be groundbreaking narrative, or I don't need this to be 28 years later, which we just discussed, where we're talking about the theme and putting everything together. I just want to be like, dude, that scene when he turns the corner was so sick. You know, and there's nothing from this movie that I would like felt like talking about afterwards. Like I said, I was like, this is a movie. It was fine. It was very predictable. It hit the beats competently, but nothing more than that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very beautiful people looking beautiful, driving fast cars. And I'm kind of surprised because I've seen a lot of the early buzz. People seem to be liking this movie more than I did.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Just like social media, Twitter. Yeah. Let's be honest, like those are always like more positive than the general consensus typically, right?
Yeah.
So obviously take that with like a big boulder of salt. But, I was just kind of surprised. I was seeing some people who I follow being like, it ruled, and I was like, man, I wish I felt that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Me too. Like you said, it is 2.5 hours long, and it doesn't need to be, because it doesn't utilize that time in a way that makes the story compelling or interesting in the way that a runtime like that should. So like there are pivotal moments in the movie where things happen. Like obviously it's a racing movie, so there are accidents, there are situations that come up where like the tension is, the tension escalates to the point where, they're out of a race or something, or there's a possible injury. But it's done in such a way that I will give the movie credit. When those accidents happen, it is done in such a way that it's sudden, so it doesn't feel like it feels very immediate. It feels very much like...
There was one in particular where I was pretty surprised, like, just how hard the wipeout was.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, it's not like the movie. I mean, there were a few moments that I think did kind of get there for me, but they were very fleeting. And even by the final climactic race sequence, where I was kind of feeling what I felt like the movie wanted me to feel, I was like, yeah, but I had to wait 2 hours and 15 minutes to get here.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, you got me there, but like, by the time it happens in Top Gun Maverick, you're like, let's go. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
Like, doing it,
Yeah.
And here you're like, and here it was more like, oh, I'm actually a little more invested in this than I thought I was,
right.
But,
oh, absolutely.
But yeah, like I could have not seen this movie. And I think this is like probably the most damning thing I can say about it. Like I could have not seen this movie and been fine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And like, I think of a movie that is like of similar length, like a movie like Sinners. And even a movie like Sinners, I think you could have probably even shaved 15 minutes off of that movie, but that's not a movie I'm really complaining about.
No.
Like, it really takes its time. But like that movie takes its time, and you're like luxuriating in like the setting and the characters.
Oh yeah.
And you're just kind of basking in it.
And it's got something to say. Like,
yes, it has something to say.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie has something to say, but it's like every sports movie has
exactly.
to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, and so it's like here you're just kind of, like it's taking its time, but it's just taking its time because they're like, we have to get more subplots in here.
Exactly.
We need more generic cliches.
Yes.
To cover. Like, it just, again, I hate that I'm forgetting the name of the the actor who plays the young kid.
Damson Idris.
Yeah. Well acted.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a great actor. I don't recognize him for anything else, but you know, it's and it's funny that Sarah Niles, who plays his mother, is only 4 years older than him.
Yeah, I saw that. That's nuts.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
I don't even understand how that happened.
He was in one of my favorite episodes from the Twilight Zone reboot from 2020. So
okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, again, good actor. I mean, everyone in the movie is doing the best they can with what they have to work. There's just not anything there. I love Javier Bardem.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool to see him in a movie where he's not playing like a weirdo. I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like ever since No Country for Old Men, he's kind of always cast as like a weird, eccentric, or intimidating. And it's kind of cool just seeing him like, he's just a guy, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so it's cool. I like seeing, you know, even like in his like Spanish language movies, like Pedro Almodovar movies, he's always playing like a pervert or a weirdo. So it's cool seeing him just like play a guy, but like again, it's just exactly what you expect. You know, Brad Pitt's one of those actors. I just feel like, obviously he's in a lot of great movies back in the day, but I do feel like he chooses like he's not in a lot of movies, right? He's probably in like one movie a year.
Yeah.
And I feel like as of late, he chooses a lot of movies that are like, I would say like 70% of the movies he chooses just kind of seem to be generic or disappointing, but like on paper, you can see why he chose it, right?
Yes.
Like he chooses like Allied, the Robert Zemeckis, like, horror movie. It's like, oh yeah, like I can see why you would choose that, but then it's like not memorable,
right? You
know, he chooses like Ad Astra. You're like, oh, James Gray, like science fiction movie, in my opinion, like wasn't memorable. Bullet Train. I mean, that's maybe I mean, but from the guy who did John Wick, the first John Wick, you know, like again, just not super memorable. What else? He was in like Babylon, like that was kind of a miss. Wolves.
Oh yeah, Wolves. Jesus.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm glad he has I mean, fingers crossed, but it sounds like it's actually it's the cast is there and it's in pre-production, but the Once Upon a Time sequel by David Fincher, that I cannot wait for.
I'm very curious about that. Yeah.
Not to go about a tangent, but yeah, sometimes I just feel like as of late, Brad Pitt, such a great actor, he still like looks very young for his age. And you kind of, I'm like, man, I just, we don't get a lot of Brad Pitt movies, and sometimes it disappoints me that he's kind of using them towards pretty forgettable stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I'm looking at his filmography now, and it's just,
I mean, there's some good stuff in there, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It was like probably the best roles. And even in stuff, you know, like stuff like Babylon is at least like, that was in my opinion, like that was at least an interesting swing. Like it was like he was playing an interesting character in it too, even if the movie didn't fully connect. But you know, there's a lot of stuff in there. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
You can tell there's not much to say about this movie because I'm like, Brad Pitt.
Yeah, like I don't have much of anything else to say about it. Like I was saying, those pivotal moments, like the accidents in the movie, like they're supposed to be like, this movie follows a very specific formula, and those moments are supposed to propel the movie into different areas of the plot for that formula. And it does, but it does so in such a lazy, just like, oh, this happened. This is why this happened. So now this person needs to act this way. And it just feels like it's not organic, or it doesn't really come across as anything too like pivotal. Like, I'm thinking, I'll dance around this because of spoilers, but there's one accident where a character gets injured, and the way it's shot is really good. It's really thrilling. It's really scary. But then, like, the fallout of that, I feel like the makeup effects were like just one part of his body is like injured, and it just felt like,
he's like fine.
Yeah.
10 minutes later.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why they didn't go full like Rush level on that.
Well, I haven't seen Rush, but it is the kind of thing where you're like, ooh, is this movie about to like kind of grow a pair of balls and do something like like unexpected? But you're like, no, it's not. You're like, yeah, it's like nope, it's just everything's fine. That was just meant to work for a second.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads to the subplot of the mom being angry at Brad Pitt, which is like that goes on for so long, and it's like that all could have been resolved with like. It is later. He's like, "Hey, actually, that was blah blah." blah.
Yeah,
and then she's like, "Oh, okay."
Yep.
It is what it is. I wish I loved it. I mean, you know me, we're kids of the 90s who grew up watching big summer blockbusters and kind of the last era when they were truly great, consistently great. And
like original ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And there were original ones. So it's like, I want nothing more walking into these kind of movies than to just have a big, awesome, loud, fun blockbuster. And we still get those from time to time. I was let down by this one.
Same.
Definitely, you know, Joseph Kosinski is obviously at like a higher tier than ever now after the success of Top Gun Maverick. And, you know, I hope maybe next time out the bat, he can really make something awesome.
Yeah.
This is what for me.
Yeah. Same here. So once again, we both rated it 3 stars on Letterboxd. Yeah, it's in theaters this weekend. It'll be on Apple TV Plus at some point. I'm not sure what their release schedule is like, but yeah, that'll do it for the secondary review this week. Any parting thoughts on F1, the movie?
No, if you're into this kind of movie, see it. If you're mildly curious, wait for it to stream on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to close down this episode because it is like 100 degrees here in Indianapolis, and I turn off my air conditioning to record these, so I am sweating profusely. I didn't need to say all of that, but anyway,
my AC's cranked all the way up.
Nice.
It was about to be terrifying, but
well, it's needed. But yeah, so that before I end the episode, Mitch, would you mind telling people where they can find you online and anything you want to plug?
You can find a lot of my past work at Midwest Film Journal. Who knows? I might write some stuff there again this year. I'm sure at some point this year. I don't know. And find me at wounded_kite on Letterboxd. Always active on there.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Mitch, for joining me on this week's episode. Greatly appreciated. We will have you back at some point, but definitely for the Bone Temple. I'm very, very excited about that.
I think I'm signed on to talk about Superman with you.
Oh, yes, you are. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, very much looking forward to that. Too.
Yes. So,
good.
Yep. Fingers crossed. And speaking of fingers crossed. I don't know. That's it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. As always, thank you so much for listening, and make sure to follow the show on social media and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Also, check out our other shows, Tower Junkies, a Stephen King podcast where I reviewed The Life of Chuck with Tiny and our friend Kim C. So check that out over at towerjunkiespod.com. And also check out my solo podcast anthology, reviewing The Twilight Zone and other classic sci-fi shows. That's at anthologypod.com. Next week on the show, I'm reviewing Elio and something else. So until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon-exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon-exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Jim, Selena, Hannah, and Frank. And because of that found family, it's just like, it shows that it gives them something, like, it reminds them that there's something to fight for. There's something to fight for. That it's not all fucked or anything. It's just something that there is a world that can still be salvaged from it, or there's still like hope that can be found in being with people and everything. And it's in contrast to Major West's kind of proclamation at the end of the movie that that what he's seen in the days since infection is people killing people, and what he saw before that was people killing people, and that now, like, the world is already in a state of normality because people are still killing people. And thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit obsessiveviewer.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.
Chemically comatose for weeks. We sneak into dreams to change your minds. Whatever it takes to wake up safely.